So welcome to another One Yorkshire event. It's great to have you here. Thanks for joining. Today, we're going to be looking at email marketing, turning your contacts into sales. If you've got questions, if you want to challenge me, please do so. Please use the chat. Feel free to tweet about it. Feel free to Instagram story about it. Take pictures, put it online. You've got my details at the bottom there. But my question to you is, what are you wanting to get out of this? What are you wanting to know about email marketing? What are you hoping to learn? And really, I'd just like questions all the way through. So please do ask questions. It makes it so much better. What are you email marketing right now? Do you send emails out in a marketing format? If you do, just put yes in the chat list for me, in the chat for me. If you don't, put no. And what platforms are you currently using as well? So Lisa wants to increase her open rate. By the way, just to remind you, if you are using the chat, select panelists and attendees so that everyone can see what you're saying if you want other people to see. Lisa's using MailChimp. What else are you using? Is anyone using any different platforms at all? Campaign Monitor. Using a third-party active campaign. So everything I talk about today can be used across any platform. I probably reference MailChimp more than anything, but it really can be used against any platform whatsoever. So for those that haven't met me, my name's Johnny Ross. I am a founder and digital marketing strategist at Fleek Marketing. I got into this through search engine optimization. I'm a qualified optician. Some of you have probably heard the story, but some of you haven't. So I'll just give you a very quick version. Qualified optician, set up a sunglass site, selling sunglasses, obviously, e-commerce site back in '99 in the dot-com boom. Top of Google, every brand of sunglass, bigger than Shade Station and Debenhams. We knew that from our buying power. 5 years later, sales dropped, didn't know why. We'd been pushed down to page 7 of Google. No one ever goes to page 7 of Google. Anyway, cutting a long story short, spent a fortune. 18 months later, found a guy in New York who finally fixed the problem on $250 an hour. I became very passionate about helping businesses understand what SEO was all about and then what digital marketing was all about. I was a minority shareholder of the business. We needed to invest at that point. I've cut the story down, but my learning came very early on with regard to digital marketing. And email marketing was always a core channel. Email typically gets one of the biggest ROIs. It is becoming more difficult because we're getting so many emails in our inbox. So it's how you stand out. It's how you get into the inbox. That's one of the important things. And how you stand out, how you get people to read them, how you get people to open them. And those things are things that we're going to be looking at today. And I always start these sessions by saying, don't do any marketing until you've come up with some very clear business objectives. I'm not going to spend too long on this at all. Just in summary, to say that, what is it you're trying to achieve? And that has to have numbers. We're looking to increase our turnover to 100 grand in the next 12 months. We're looking for 10 new clients that are spending £1,000 a month. What are your numbers? What are your objectives and goals? What are you trying to achieve? And they have to be smart, because really you have to define that before you start email marketing. And then you've got to think about the audiences. So who are those 10 clients? Who are those 5,000 people that need to buy something from you? What do they look like? Can you describe them? So we need to try and define the target audience and pigeonhole them to some extent. Because if you talk to everyone, no one will listen. If you talk to people that you think might buy from you and you talk directly to them, they've got a good chance of listening to you and engaging. You've got to be, when you write an email, that email, you have to be thinking of one person in mind. I'm writing this email to Susie today. I'm writing this email to Tim today. I know Tim, I'm going to get in his mindset I know his pain points. I know his problems. And the email is going to be very focused at Tim and all the people that are like Tim. Instead of, I'm just going to send this to anyone and everyone because anyone can buy my products. It doesn't work. So one of the questions is, what would you pay for people to do? Because email marketing isn't free. It takes time. Some platforms cost, but there is that notion that people think it's free. And, you know, if you're using Outlook to send email campaigns, stop. You are destroying your domain trust, your email trust, totally destroying it. And there's a chance of your own emails, just business one-to-one emails getting put into spam. And there's also a risk of you damaging the trust of your website as well. Kellen's already asked, if you targeted your market, what would be a typical conversion rate you could expect? Email to first conversation. Oh, conversion rate. Good question. So I'd say, let me answer it in a slightly different way. On a targeted campaign, I would hope that you could achieve 25, 30% open rates and 5% conversion click-through rates. You've then got to take that further to think about who would convert and who would, and what conversations would that turn into. But I think from a sort of just really broad brush benchmark point of view, I think if a targeted campaign isn't getting 25% opens and 5% click-throughs, then something's not quite right yet. And that's the sort of, I would say, the benchmark to consider. So as I said, yeah, please do keep asking questions. So what would you pay people to do? So you're going to send an email out, but what are you hoping that they're going to do? So fill out a form, make a purchase. Is it a secondary thing? What's, you know, do you want them to watch a video? Do you want to educate them? Subscribe to content, build your list. How are we going to build your list? I'm going to answer all of these questions. This is a jam-packed session. There's loads in it. And so I am going to try and answer as many things as possible. So recent statistics, let's have a look at some of those. So 65% of brands are not using any segmentation. They're just sending to all. 53% of companies didn't send an after-sales review email asking for feedback, asking for reviews. 56% of brands failed to send an abandoned cart email. So I realize that some of you may have baskets on your website, and some of you may have products and e-commerce. And I also realize that some of you might not. So I cover both audiences. And the ones that do have products, you need to consider these abandoned cart side of things. Hannah's just asking, can we get the slides? Of course, you'll get a video. You'll get this video. This is being recorded. It'll be put onto YouTube, possibly later today, if not first thing in the morning, and you will automatically get an email with everything in there. So 30% of companies mixed editorial with promotional content. 57% of email subscribers spent 10 to 60 minutes browsing marketing emails during the week. So how do you get into that hour of browsing? Knowledge workers on average spend 13 of their working hours each week in their email box. And one survey found that 90% of business people use email as much or more than they did last year. So just bear these stats in mind. And, you know, what are the benefits? Some say that email's dead, but actually an engaged list is really powerful. But note the word engaged. I mean, you know, going back to someone's question earlier, if you've got a really engaged list, a very clear target audience, I've seen open rates of 70 to 80%. Huge. So when I was saying 25%, that's just a benchmark across, you know, an average, not that there is an average really, but a very targeted list, you can really do quite well. Got some other questions so straight away. Colin, What tech are you using to get your floating head over the slides? It's slightly off tangent, but I don't mind. So Zoom, actually, nothing more than Zoom. They've added a new feature. If you go to share screen and then go to advanced, there's some extra features where you can, it's a beta feature, but you can put these slides as a virtual background. And I have a green screen behind me that enables me to make it look very nice and not, not my head disappearing and stuff like that. We've got another question. So, Andrew, what is the best time of week and day to send an email campaign? So, great question. I don't have the answer. And the reason being is it depends on your audience. So it depends on who it is you're trying to speak to, who it is you're trying to target. And that's the difficult bit. So you've got to do some trial and error and start trying different things. Some businesses find, a Sunday at 7 p.m. could have a huge open rate. Typically, I would start thinking about maybe sort of Tuesday or Thursday mornings, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday mornings. Monday tends to be busy. We tend to have a full inbox. I tend to try and avoid lunch times. I tend to try and wait till sort of after 11 so that people have had time to deal with their inbox and may have some space. So, as a general rule of thumb, 11 o'clock, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or maybe sort of 2, 3 o'clock on those days. But as I said, it depends, really does depend on so many factors. Hannah's asked a question, how do you grow your list, social or downloadable PDFs? Well, it's probably both. But I'll certainly come up with some ideas. Lynn says we get typically 35 to 40% opens. That's really good. But the question is, how are we going to get it higher? How are we going to get it to 70 or 80%? Dipesh, what are your thoughts on Hootsuite? My thoughts on Hootsuite are it's got absolutely nothing to do with email marketing. And so I don't have many thoughts on Hootsuite regarding email marketing. I think it's all right for social media, but I think there's lots of other platforms out there. But I think it does a good job. But I don't think I'd be using it for email marketing. And perhaps they do offer that. I'm not aware of that, but I think there's probably better platforms out there, but certainly for social media, it's all right. And so what are the benefits? So it's a relatively low cost email marketing, but there is some cost. Don't forget that. Typically the highest return on investment. It's easy to track. So many people don't put tracking in place, and it's instant. There's the whole automation potential as well, and that's something that we'll dig into a bit as well. So let me just give you some basics. So one of the key basics is, here's your inbox. How are you going to jump out and get someone to open your email? Well, you've got some very simple things very quickly. The first thing is, who's the email from? Is it a friendly from name? And is it something that that someone would recognize? So is it your name? Are you the personality in the brand? Or is it the company name? Are they more familiar with the company name? I'm guessing that they'll be more familiar with maybe your name than the company name, or perhaps you want to create some kind of persona for the company instead of putting the company name. So it depends very much, but it depends on the organization, the size of the organization, and what you do. But you've got to think of that friendly name. The next thing is the subject line. So, as I said, these are totally back to basics, but you can see that you've only got so many words in the screen, and you've got to consider, and I've put mobile on there because so many people use mobile. If you optimize for mobile, desktop is only going to be better. But I would say optimize for mobile, because if you can make it good on mobile, it'll be good on desktop. So subject lines, emojis work. You can see an emoji on the top one there. We'll look at some other subject lines in a moment as well. But you need something that's grabbing. And then the third thing that most people don't think about is that pre-header text, that third line. So, so many people leave it and it just says, view this email in the browser. But it's your opportunity to create something that's grabbing in that third line, that backs up the subject line, that gets people to open the email. And that ultimately, by the way, is just the first line of text in the email. And on some email campaign software, you've got the ability that it even says, what do you want in the third line? What do you want in the pre-header text? But in some email campaigns, it's literally just the first line of text inside the email body itself. So killer subject lines. And you can see, I talked about emojis a second ago. And you can see on the right-hand side some examples, and you can see how the two with emojis do stand out a bit more. But there's some tried and tested formulas for subject lines. So use a number, 7 secrets to success. Teach me how to do something. Ask a question. Are you? Talk to me. Use the word you or your. Say no. If you tell someone not to do something, they're intrigued. Use celebrities or brands or popular trends. Pizza Express is the winner is my example there. Their email marketing is phenomenal, by the way. I'm not sure in the more recent years, but if we go back a number of years, they absolutely nailed email marketing. And I've got some examples in this session today, and I'll show you. As I said, if you've got questions, please do ask. Please feel free to tweet about this. Please feel free to take a picture. It's great that you're here, and I really value your time being spent here. And as I said, I want to make it as valuable as possible, so please do ask your questions. Be controversial in subject lines. Make unusual associations. How lemons help your HR. It intrigues you. It makes you want to look. We've also found that capitalizing each word can make a big difference. We've found that on Google Ads as well, and on email subject lines, and it can increase open rates significantly. Lisa, what would you put the recipient's first name in the subject line? Personalization. I mean, it's a really good point. It's not on the slide. We do talk about personalization a bit later on. Yes, absolutely. If you've got that first name, use it. And I'd absolutely. But this is about testing and trying, of course, as well. Lynn, our audience tends mostly to be older, over 50 up to retired. Not sure emojis are a good idea for us. I disagree. I actually would. I think it's about finding the right emoji. So, just looking at the village hotels there, it's just a clock. It's not a gimmick. It's not, I'm not sure actually if that matches the 10,000 rooms for £29. So, good and bad example, but I'm not suggesting it needs to be a silly emoji. I'm suggesting that it can really stand out. And, I'd give credit to these 50-year-olds because is it Ty? My mum sends them to me and she's 72. My mother-in-law is constantly putting GIFs up on Facebook, and I'm thinking, how do you know how to do this stuff? So, yeah, I'd give them more credit actually, and I'd totally use emojis. Mobile response. There we go. Colin's the same. So there's a bit of research, and I'd consider it. So as I said, focus on mobile, and that's if you can get mobile right, then everything will be better. 47% of emails are opened on mobile devices. 17% on desktops and 36 in webmail. So it's about testing as well, and it's about making sure that it works, that you send an email out and you try it on different browsers and different settings, different devices, to make sure that the emails look good on all devices. You've got to make them visually strong. So it's about having an on brand as well. So it's about using bullet points. It's about breaking text up, using bullet points, using headlines, break up text into small paragraphs, get personal, use their first name, use the data that you've got throughout the email. Bold, colorful call to action buttons. Again, going right back to the beginning, what is it you're trying to get people to do? And be very clear about the purpose of the email so that you can try and get people to do whatever action it is that you're wanting to get people to do. Really important. So we talked about target audience and segmenting, and here's some, you can see the differences it can make. So 39% increase open rates from just segmenting. Better relevance, better opt-in and unsubscribe rates, better deliverability, increased sales leads, generates revenue, better customer retention, higher number of transactions, better acquisition, lower spam complaints, improve word of mouth. Lots of good stuff there. So how could you segment? You could segment based on gender or age or job function, seniority, location, company size, or sector. Those are just some ideas. I mean, what I'd say is, this is where CRMs are so important. This is where if you have a business, having a database is so important. Not just having, pen and paper and putting sales down in some kind of book. It's about the ability to be able to go into a database and have a look at, when people last bought, when you last contacted them, when you last spoke, what the exact service that you're doing with them, how you first met them, all sorts of different things, so that you can use that data and segment the audience into lots of different places. If we do have any more questions, please do ask. Well, I think there's one there. Colin, thoughts on use of images? Never many, one or two, and the same question for links and URLs. So I'm definitely going to be talking about images. And in fact, I might save that for when I do talk about them. With regard to links, probably don't go into too much detail about links. I'd say that the more links that you've got, the spammier the email looks from a sort of spam point of view. So that doesn't mean don't be too cautious, because links are important, and having a number of different places to take people is really important. But there's a balance. So it's about, ensuring that you give more information and that you do take people to places, take people to places, but don't fill it full of links everywhere, because that does start triggering spam filters. Lisa, when we are sending our e-news, we have a link for each piece. Not a good idea. No, I think that's fine. I think the issue is if you start incorporating even more links into paragraphs, and I've seen emails where you might have like a list, like a bullet point list of 10 links or more. So it's just about some common sense. But I think, the common sense thing to me is that if you're writing about an article and you'd click to read more, I think that's fine. So don't be put off. But, Colin's asked me the question, he's right to ask it. Spam filters do look at the number of links, but they look at it versus the amount of content as well. So if there's a fair amount of content, it's not too much of an issue, but it's something to bear in mind. I'll definitely be answering the image question. So, you asked about time of day and subject lines and all sorts of different things. The real answer to this is to split test. And this is just a screenshot from MailChimp, but there's lots of different email platforms out there that offer this functionality. And my advice is not to send an email out without doing some kind of split test, to always try something. And the way this works, it's really clever if you've not used this before, because what it does is you can basically say to MailChimp or to any of the email campaign softwares, before you send this email to everyone, I want you to send it to a percentage of my audience, and I want you to see what gets the most engagement, or what gets the most opens, or what gets the most clicks. So we're going to try 2 or 3 different variations. We're going to send those 3 variations randomly to 20% of the audience, and we're going to leave it for 4 hours, and we're going to measure, based on open rate, which email gets opened the most. And once we know that answer, I want you to send that email to the rest of the audience, to the 80% of the audience, 4 hours later. So why wouldn't you do that? I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? You've got some automation here that is just included that allows you to test a number of different factors. Catherine, MailChimp recommended each segment at least 5,000 recipients. Our email database is only 100,000. Would you still try segmentation? I would. It's not quite as scientific, of course, but I still would. I think you've got nothing to lose. What you might want to do is test it on, maybe at least 30% of the audience. You've got nothing to lose. There is some data there. MailChimp's right in saying that, the more data there is, the more accurate it becomes. Hannah, that's an amazing function. I did not know about it. Yep. So it's really simple. On this screen, you can have variations, the subject line, the from name, the content, so the email itself, even if that's just changing a button from red to blue, or changing a whole campaign, and the send time. You can then say, okay, well, I only want to send it to this percentage of people, and I'm going to base it on click-through rate or open rate, and I'm going to test it after. Here we've put 4 hours. So split test all the time and learn from it. And, MailChimp will then say, okay, well, actually the subject line with the person's name in won. So when you next do a campaign, use the person's name in the subject line. And then let's test something else. Let's test a content change in the email, or let's test a slightly different from name. The next thing people don't consider is the landing page experience. So you've sent this email out, you've got people to open it, which is a tough battle. You've then got people to click, which is even tougher. But everyone forgets the landing page. Everyone forgets how important that is, how important that it feels the same, and that I don't get a surprise when I'm there, that I actually get the content that you've told me I'm going to get, and that it all marries up, and that you're going to squeeze me to click or do something on that page. And that's why they're called squeeze pages, by the way. So a landing page, a squeeze page, whatever you want to call it, is where you take people to when they click through. Now, okay, if it's a blog and it's just read more, or an article and read more, then that's what it is. However, you still need to consider the call to actions on that page. What do you actually really want people to do? Do you want people just to read that blog? I'm guessing not. So what are the call to actions, and have you integrated them into that page? And you might need to integrate them into your blog template, for example. So here's just some things to consider. So we've got, this is a sort of perfect landing page. We've got a clear call to action at the top. We've got highlighting the USPs, outline the benefits. We've got a pink button with put your details here. Keep it relevant. So based on the target audience, is the messaging right? Add some pictures, prove credibility. How are you going to add trust onto that page? Is that with logos, testimonials, TripAdvisor, whatever it is? How are you going to add trust onto that page? Make it easy, give some urgency. It's that the word's completely vanished. It's the scarcity marketing. So here, free 30-day trial, last few spaces left. How many spaces have you got left? Think about it. You want 10 more clients, that means you've got 10 spaces. You want 9 more clients, you've got 1, means you've got 9 spaces. So put some urgency, signpost, add some forms. Lisa, would you resend to those not opened within a couple of days? Yeah, people do that. I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with it, but it does work. So as a user, it can be frustrating at times, but at the same time, as an ROI, it does work. And so for the people that you frustrate, they probably weren't going to open the email in the first place. So that's the way I would look at it. So they were probably never going to open it, and you're probably lowering the chance of opening future ones potentially with them. But for the ones that do open it, they just genuinely missed it, or just genuinely didn't have the time at the time to open it at that time. So I think you can do that. I think you've just got to be aware of the feelings it can create. And yeah, what you're doing is you're basically saying, okay, for this email campaign that we sent out, everyone that didn't open it, want to resend that campaign 2 days later. We might change the subject line slightly, or we might change the from slightly. So hopefully you've heard my answer there. Slightly mixed answer. Just checking we've not got any other questions. No. Okay. So I talked about tracking, and one of the things that you can implement, for example, and some of these things aren't set as default, so you've got to go in and set them. So if you were to, for example, if you do have MailChimp, you can tick a box that connects your Google Analytics to your MailChimp. And so what you just need to do is Google MailChimp Google Analytics tracking, and make sure, and just find out, you'll find the how-to, and make sure that you've got that switched on. What that then does is it adds a bit of code to the end of the URL. So if you're taking people to a homepage or a blog or an offer page, a squeeze page, it adds a bit of code to the end of the URL that then inputs some data into Google Analytics to give you a bit more of a picture. Now, of course, MailChimp, Campaign Monitor, all the others give you data on who's clicked, when they opened, what actions they took. What Google Analytics does is first of all triangulates that data to sort of say, okay, yes, that is correct, or the numbers are slightly different. But the second thing is it tells you what else they did. So MailChimp can only see what happens in the email and if they clicked something. Google Analytics then tells you what happens when they got to the website. Did they then fill out that form or buy that product on your website page? And that becomes even more meaningful because now not only are you looking at open rates and click-through rates, but you're looking at that conversion rate, which is what someone was asking earlier. And you're looking at, okay, the traffic that came from the email campaign, did they trigger a goal? Did they trigger an event on our website inside Google Analytics? And those two things are really important. Andrew says we use Raven tools for the URL builder. So yes, if you do need to manually build the URL, then I'm sure that one that Andrew's put there will work. Alternatively, I just simply Google campaign URL builder. Google has their own version, and you can manually create these links as well. But with most email platforms, they're already automatically created if you tick the box. And as I said, it's just a tiny bit of tracking that then brings the data into Google Analytics as well. So you can then triangulate and you can see what's going on when they actually get to the website. So some of the key metrics to be looking at, and we've mentioned some already, would be, how many emails have you sent? The deliverability rate. So, maybe you sent 1,000, but actually only 900 were delivered. And that could be because, 100 of them were bounced back. So what's the deliverability rate? How many emails were opened? The number of recipients who clicked through, how many people unsubscribed, and the conversion tracking, and therefore the return on investment, the conversion. So those are typically, at a headline point of view, some of the metrics that you could consider. And if I was to give you some industry standards, then if you were to Google email marketing benchmarks, there's a number of different, I'm sure you'll find a few different sources. MailChimp has one. Mailer, I really like Mailer. Very expensive though. So it's sort of like a corporate, what's the word I'm looking for? That's not the word I'm looking for. But a high-end, that's not the word either. High-end email marketing platform, amazing, but expensive. And the beauty of Mailer is that the emails coming from Mailer are probably more likely to get through spam filters than something like MailChimp, but there's a big price tag. And I'm not necessarily recommending them unless you are sending, hundreds of thousands of emails out, or unless you really want to invest significantly in email marketing. But the reason I do mention them is because they've got a very good email marketing benchmark report, which you can download from their website, and it gives you a lot of data. But then what it's basically saying, on average, 20% open rates across all industries. But then as you start looking at the different industries, you start seeing some differences. And the click-through rates, you can see there anything from 3.65 to 4.78. I was suggesting earlier that a targeted list, at least 25% opens, at least 5% click-throughs. But what you're wanting to do is obviously increase on that. And the way to do it is whatever you currently have. So someone had 30 to 40%. Well, next month, you want to increase that to 35, 45%. That's the way to look at it. And you want to see an upward trend, not a downward trend. Follow up with people that have clicked and opened. The data's there. MailChimp shows you who opened the email. MailChimp shows you how many times they opened it. MailChimp shows you what links they clicked, how many links they clicked. I mean, come on. It's on a plate for a sales call. It's there. No one likes telesales. I get it. But when MailChimp provides you a list of hot targets, I mean, pick up the phone. But so many people don't follow it up. But it's there on a plate for you, and people do not mind. They're, in a lot of cases, and having done this many times myself, people are impressed that, first of all, you knew. They're not freaked out. They're impressed that you knew, and they value that you've personally picked up the phone. And you know that they're interested. But how pop in the chat. Do you follow up? Do you do what I've just described? Yes or no in the chat. And that's probably one of the biggest steps to really consider, to put some processes in place to to continually be having a look at that list. So we've got some no's there. So there's that would be one of the biggest takeaways, because it's just on a plate there waiting. You might get some competitors that open, but of course, what you can see the name of the person. You can look in the database. You can look on LinkedIn. You can soon get an idea if it's a competitor or if it's someone that actually, would be quite a good fit for your services. So how to get signups, some best practices. Hannah, I've not started yet, but I wouldn't have thought to. Now I will be brave. Good. Glad to hear. Lynn, no, much of our list is legacy or online signups, and we don't necessarily have the phone numbers. Oh, Lynn, is that an excuse? Or are they consumers? I'll let you off if they're consumers. But if they're businesses, then I'm being mean on Lynn today. They're consumers. All right, you've been let off the hook. Okay, so what I'd say, fair enough. And you might not pick up the phone to consumers. What I would suggest is doing some type of campaigns and I don't talk about it in this presentation actually, but one of the things that you need to consider is how to get more data. So you can use email campaigns to get data, to collect data. So if you're trying to get phone numbers, for example, you might have I can't give you the exact detail right now, but for example, you'll have something on the email that gets them to a page. And on that page, it's, based on the data that you've got, it says, "Hi, Johnny, blah, 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 blah. Oh, by the way, you can win something, or you can, we're just looking to tidy up our database," or whatever it might be. Is this the right number? Or we noticed we don't have a phone number for you. Would you like to put it here? Or, do you want to enter our competition? Put your phone number here. That sort of thing, so that you're continually building not just the number of emails and the people on the list, but actually all their data as well. And that's really important. And not just for telephone numbers, of course. So how to get better signups, best practices. Have an online sign-up form. Really simple. MailChimp, again, offer forms that you can embed onto your websites. There's loads of plugins for different websites, loads of plugins for different mail providers. Have the form on your website, make it easy to sign up, make it obvious, make it in lots of different places. Around that form, give some incentives, make it clear that you're not going to be spamming people, and make sure the form is above the fold. So when you get to a web page, you don't have to scroll to get to the form. It should be there. Explore pop-ups. So Opt-in Monster, great pop-up. And it's a great suite of pop-ups. When you're on someone's website, even if you just move your mouse and go off the website, it's called an exit pop-up. It flashes up saying, oh, before you go, blah, 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 blah. Exit pop-ups work really well to build lists. Lynn saying we do 4 letters. We have 1 website and 12 on Facebook. Okay, cool. New signups. Pop-up on our website has worked great on our website last couple of months. Yeah, pop-ups really do convert, and it's a great way to build subscribers. Just excuse me a second. So someone subscribes. I'll go into a bit more about building your list, by the way. Someone subscribes. What's the best practice is send them a welcome email. Again, most brands don't do this. So send it immediately. It's automated. It's set up inside MailChimp or whatever. Some kind of inspiring subject line, a compelling proposition, make it mobile, have some call to actions, make your T&Cs and privacy policies really clear. Just in the footer, a nice little link to them. It adds trust. It follows the best practice email rules. That helps from a spam filter point of view. Have a view in browser option. All of these are best practices. Make it personalized. Think about landing pages. Abandon cart emails, best practices, send immediately, relevant subject lines, compelling content. And again, make it personalized and have some great design. Split content up, use bullet points, use short paragraphs, and make it mobile friendly and clear call to actions. Best practices for newsletters, make them relevant. So think about the segmentation, think about the subject line, make it personal. I'm just trying to really drill some of this in. Make it visually appealing, create a good mix of content. I'm going to come on to the number of images very shortly. Clear call to actions and landing pages for onward journeys. What about when someone has made the purchase? Well, thank them. Have a confirmation email on brand, not just, the plain standard text, but make it look good, on brand. Ask for feedback, ask for reviews. Think of post-purchase content, how-to tips and guides. What can you do once they've bought something? Images. Someone asked that earlier. In answer to your question, use background colors. So I'm going to talk about that in a moment. You'll see what I'm on about. But aim for about a maximum of 50% images versus content, and keep the total image size ideally below 200 kilobytes. So we're talking about you're wanting an email to load quickly, especially on a mobile phone if they're if they're not on Wi-Fi. You also want spam filters not to be triggered. So spam filters look at things like image size, and then the other thing is to consider using background image and background colors. Sorry, and I'll show you why. So here's some emails that just to share with you. So here's an email I received. The images didn't load in Outlook. There's nothing to see. I'm not inspired. I'm probably not going to do a great deal with that email. This one, similar story. It's just, we've just got a black background and no image, but I guess it's a step up. We've got at least something. Now here we're starting to get somewhere. So Outlook has blocked the pictures, but what we can see is that I don't know if anyone recognizes this brand straight away, by the way. Homebase is the answer. It's their colors, and it's being used as background color. So it's not images, but it doesn't matter if images don't load because it still looks nice. So now we've started to create some engagement, even if images aren't loading. Jet 2, no pictures here, background color only. But again, it's a bit more inspiring. It's got through, as I said, even if images haven't opened, it's readable. I can see what's being said, and it looks nice. I talked about Pizza Express being the winner, and this was one of the reasons they've won many things with regard to email marketing. This particular one was purely background color on the left-hand side. So the right-hand side was the email with images. The left-hand side was the email without images. It's amazing. It's so clever. And it's purely just using background color in the email design. Naomi, what tips do you have when you're trying to advertise, sell a service to a business rather than a product? Would you advise anything different is done? No. I know I get asked that a lot, and people sort of see B2B differently, B2C differently. I mean, the short answer is no. It's, when you're selling a product, you're thinking of features, benefits, and advantages. When you're selling a service, you're still thinking the same things, and you may be just taking it a step further and thinking of pain points. What's the target audience's problem? How can I solve it? And I think like a retailer, even when you're selling a service. And so I don't think there might be some fundamental differences. Maybe you can ask me a more specific question, but I think as a general rule of thumb, no. I really wouldn't think any differently at all. Andrew's question sounds like it's just been answered. Can you also get text to show if images don't show font? And yes, you can. So you can see the text on the background, and text would always show. By the way, sorry, text would always show. So how to get through spam filters, best practices. Use a different domain name. What, I hear you say? Yes. So if you start having a look at some of the marketing emails you get from some big brands and big businesses, you'll notice that the domain name that they use is either a subdomain of their main domain, or it's a different domain. So for example, it might be, jet2emails.com instead of jet2. I can't remember exactly what it is, but that sort of thing. So it's a branded jet2emails.com. And if you visited Jet2 emails, it would say, you've probably arrived here because you've received Jet2 email. If you want to get to our main site, click here. But what you're doing is you're protecting your main domain name, because if you get caught in spam, and if you were Google or if you were Hotmail or Microsoft, wouldn't you use that data to rank websites? I think I would. If people were reporting, if you think like a search engine, and imagine a human's running a search engine. If I knew that people were clicking spam on a particular set of emails and putting them into spam, I'd seriously consider the questionability of that website within my search engine. So having a different, and it can work the other way around as well. So any issues on your website can then reflect in email as well. And the bigger issue here is that it can massively affect your own business everyday emails. So the last thing you want is your everyday emails going into spam filters. But if you send email marketing using your domain name, there's a huge risk that that's going to happen. So having a different domain name is a real best practice. As we said, 50% of images versus content, maximum images versus content, ideally 200 kilobytes. Encourage users to reply to emails. Again, imagine you are Google, imagine you're Microsoft, and you see people replying to marketing emails. Well, you'd think, oh, right, okay, they must be engaged. They're not replying with the word unsubscribe, by the way. They're replying with something. They must be engaged. Right. That's a little tick box there. So how can you get people to reply to emails? Maybe add something at the bottom of your email that says, we welcome feedback, good or bad. Please just hit reply and let us know. Promote the unsubscribe button. The last thing you want is someone to report you as spam. That is the last thing you want. So make it really easy to unsubscribe. Don't hide the unsubscribe link. Make it easy. And if someone unsubscribes, make sure that you remove their email from everywhere, because the last thing you want to do is email them again, because they might complain. They might, lots and lots of reasons. Send using a reputable email marketing infrastructure. So, I'm just looking at Michelle's question, 200, the total of all images or per image. Ideally, it's the total of all images, actually. But I understand that's not the easiest thing to do. It's a guide. But in an ideal world, you'd have all images, the total being less than 200 kilobytes. The email marketing infrastructure, so sending the emails, don't use Outlook. Use a proper marketing platform. So whether that be MailChimp, whether it be Campaign Monitor. As I said earlier, using something like Mailer is a big step up, and it's an infrastructure that's a bit more trusted. There's less, it's expensive, so there's less people on there, and there's less spam on there. So it's a much more respected and reputable infrastructure. And that can be some of the differences on getting through spam filters, just even the infrastructure. But MailChimp's not bad, by the way. Encourage to be added to address books or safe senders. So encourage people to add your email address to their contact list, basically. Clean lists. Before you send any emails out, get your database and put it through something like Zero Bounce or Bright Verify or Never Bounce to clean the list, to get rid of known complainers, to get rid of known bounces, etc., etc. And make sure you segment, because segmenting reduces spam complaints. So some of the best practices we've talked about: brand consistency, the friendly from name, the tone of voice, the design, the email preferences, so the frequency of communication, the types of content. Make it easy for users to be able to select that, or tell users what they're signing up to. By putting your email in here, we're going to send you a weekly or a monthly or whatever it might be, not too frequently. What just help them understand and make it easy for them to select different options. That pre-header, that third subject line, you've got the opportunity to really back up the subject line and help people click open. The view in browser link, the unsubscribe link, balance the image copy, and think mobile. So how to build your list. We've talked about some of the ways so far. We talked about the opt-in forms. We talked about having a form above the fold. We talked about having pop-ups. But encourage people to forward emails. So add something in there. If you think that you know someone that might benefit from this email, please forward it to them. Add call to actions throughout content and events, asking people to subscribe. If you want to subscribe to my website, my blog, go to fleek.marketing, put your email address in on the right-hand side, and you'll start receiving some email marketing from me. But take opportunities, take opportunities to ask people to do things. So whether that be during content or during events or whatever it might be, signpost people to do things. Collect business cards. Now, there's a GDPR question here. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to get into it. It's up to you what you do. but there is an email address on that business card. Connect on LinkedIn, same story. There is an email address on that LinkedIn profile. Pop-ups, exit pop-ups, legitimate interest. I'm not getting into it, Hannah. I've been squashed too many times, and so I'm going to let you make your own minds up. Pop-ups and exit pop-ups we've already discussed. So these are just some of the ways to build your list. Then think of segmenting. So adding tags to different contacts, tagging them based on lots of different factors, lots of different data points that you've got. What data points have you got, and how can you segment them? Think about personas and the target audience. So if it's the company, it's maybe based on the size or the sector or the industry. Maybe it's based on the location or the values or the departments it's got. Those are just some of the things to consider when you're segmenting based on company. If you're segmenting based on a person, then there's lots more. So it might be the age, the gender, the location, the education, the job title. Think about things like, and it's not on this slide, but think about things like, when did they last purchase? When did you last speak to them? What services have you provided? What type of job function do they have? But then there's lots of other things here as well. The other thing to consider, and one of the things that I've not covered in this session so far, is transactional emails. So emails for saying, you've made a purchase, maybe a product. So an e-commerce website, you create an account, you buy something in the cart, and you receive some welcome emails and an email that says, why can't I speak? I've lost the ability to speak. You get your order on the email. That's all I'm trying to say. When you buy something online, you receive an order. You receive an order confirmation is the word I was looking for. It's finally come. More coffee. You're right. I've got a full cup here that I've not had a sip of yet. Excuse me. So transactional emails. These are not marketing emails, but you really want to get them through spam filters, and you want the delivery rate to be there. And you also don't want to affect what search engines and email clients think of your domain name. So never send from your web server, which most websites do automatically, and avoid sending from Outlook. So I would look at something called Postmark app or Mandrill. Mandrill's part of MailChimp. They bought it recently. They're very cheap platforms. They're not expensive, and you're only allowed transactional email on them. But basically, they're an integration into your ecosystem, into your website, that takes any email that your website may have ever sent and puts it into Postmark app or Mandrill instead. And it's a way to protect your domain name. So whilst we're talking about email marketing, I think it's important to mention website and transactional emails. And also, I think it's important to mention personalized and cold email automation. So again, this is a separate topic and would have a whole nother session on it. But what we've been talking about so far is an opt-in list where people have opted into an email marketing campaign. Here, what we're talking about is a cold email. They've not opted in, and and maybe even some kind of automation campaign. And there's some really great tools that you might want to consider. So I've put Quick Mail, Reply, OnTreport, Sendinblue, Autopilot, Mailshake. We're a partner for Sendinblue. However, and there's nothing wrong with being open and honest. I actually really like Reply.io. And we know that inside out as well. And these are platforms for cold emails automation. So it's that sort of first touch point. You might have a legitimate interest of email addresses from LinkedIn that you want to start some kind of campaign where you send an email, 3 days later, send another, 7 days later, 14 days later. There's some really good returns that you can get on these things. These are very different type of emails. They tend to be very plain text email. So it's only text. It's very personalized. It literally looks like I have typed you an email. Does that even need an unsubscribe? It's a very personal email, and they're very short, sharp, simple. You expect a response. You say reply. One simple call to action, typically getting them to reply. The thing to bear in mind here is that these platforms use your own inbox. So you must never send more than 200 a day. And that's because they're not using any other infrastructure. They're using your infrastructure. As I said, it's a whole nother session, but I felt it was important just to cover that topic. A couple of quick examples to bring this to a close. Krispy Kreme, thought it was great. Received this email, and the subject line was confidential internal memo. And then about 10 minutes later, there was a recall, confidential, it's just above my head, preparation for Krispy Kreme Nutella queries. And in fact, sorry, yeah, maybe the first one wasn't internal memo, but exactly that subject line without the recall at the top. Anyway, getting into semantics. There was a recall. So it was like, oh God, they didn't mean to send that out, did they? And it's confidential. I need to look at that. It made me want to open it. And it was the funniest and cleverest email I've ever read, because it was never confidential and it was never being recalled. It was a very, very clever email. And if you'd be able to read this afterwards, but it got me wanting to read it. And it was very funny and worked well. Another example, this was a cold email automation. And I thought it was clever. No cold emails are great, really, but I thought this one was very clever, because if you have a look at it, you see that, he's put, our VP came across your agency's work and asked me to reach out. And if you scroll down the email, you can see lower down the internal conversation. The internal conversation is, I've seen this, think they're a good partner, reach out to them and speak to them. It's not real. Danny didn't find me and email Daniel and say to Daniel, email Johnny. That's not what happened, but it does look like that. And having seen many, many cold email automations, I do think that they've been the closest to nailing it. People can still see through it, but at the same time, it stood out for me, and I see a lot. So I thought that was quite clever as well. So hope you've enjoyed this. We've only got a minute left. Please don't jump off yet. I've just got a couple of things to quickly share, but I hope this has been helpful. I don't know if there's any other questions at all. I think, there was. Colin, thoughts on double opt-in? Just quickly answer that. Colin, thoughts on double opt-in is where they sign up using an online form, but they need to confirm via email. I'm thinking this gets a bit more engaged list, shows respect for personal data. Yeah, double opt-in is a really good idea, and it does get a much more engaged list. And that's really kind that you like my style. That's very kind indeed. Please don't jump. I just want to share two things very quickly. So we've got the podcast that I do that you are very welcome to join as a listener. I'd love you to join me and hear more. And also there's lots more events going on, so you can head over to theauctionmafia.com to see more events. We also have set up, that's the podcast link. What was the first slide? Oh, that was the more events. That was the podcast link. I've also set up a Facebook group if you're wanting to network or learn from other people, and you can also find me in there to ask me more questions. It would be great to see you in there. As I said, please do tweet this, or feel free to go on Instagram. You can find me on LinkedIn if you want to ask me further questions. And the most important part is that when you leave this session, when I close this session down, you'll be taken to a questionnaire where you can just give me some feedback, let me know how this went, so that I can build on this and make it even better next time. I've got more sessions next week. You can find them on the Auction Mafia website. You can join me on LinkedIn with pleasure. Hope this has been helpful. I think it has, reading the comments. You've been really engaging and asking questions, which has been really helpful. So thank you. Thank you for your time. Have a great day. And I will see you at the next event. See you all soon. Take care. Bye-bye.